Hello and welcome to the Motivational Millennial Podcast, where we speak with inspiring members of the millennial generation who are living life with a sense of purpose and achieving their dreams. I'm Blake Brandis.
And I'm Ivy LeClaire.
Our guests today are Caleb Arring and Matthew VanHorn. Dynamic power couple Caleb and Matthew are two extremely successful and passionate business mentors who have helped countless entrepreneurs get clients and elevate their businesses. When they first started, they each struggled to get enough clients to survive. It was so painful that when they finally discovered how to make their businesses successful, they felt called to share it with the LGBTQ community. Caleb and Matthew have used the tools they now teach to others to make over $20,000 in a month collectively. In addition, they believe in giving back to the LGBTQ community and have donated time and money to several nonprofits. Caleb and Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Hey, thanks for having us.
Well, we are so excited to get to talk with you, and I know you both have fascinating individual journeys as well as your collective journeys. So to start us off, would you mind sharing what you're up to at the moment and why you're so passionate about it?
Well, it is Pride Month currently while we're doing this interview. So that just has really been our focus. We've been doing a lot of workshops and presentations and just seeing how we can give back to the community. Plus, we live in San Francisco, which is arguably probably the gayest city in the world. And
the hub of gay pride.
The hub of gay pride. So we've also been trying to balance out just being social with work. You know, as entrepreneurs, we can sometimes get caught up in nonstop work and forgetting that there's also time to enjoy yourself as well.
That's wonderful. How did you start working together and what you're currently doing?
Yeah, so what we are currently doing is we are working with LGBTQ entrepreneurs to help them grow their business and get more clients. We have been together for about 3 years. Actually, we just celebrated 3 years together on Friday.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. And, you know, in a big way, it came down to wanting to spend more time with each other.
So when I met Caleb, he actually was working as a lawyer in a law firm where he was working like 80 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And when we first started dating, I was working at a restaurant and was working like, maybe 20 hours a week. I had a lot of free time and I was doing a lot of like side hustles to make ends meet. And we had this opposite schedules. And we lived that way for probably like the first like year, almost year of our relationship. And what we started to do came about because we realized, yes, we wanted to spend more time together, but we both were not happy with where we were. I wanted to do something that was more fulfilling for me, and Caleb wanted to have more free time and to work for himself. And so actually our progression was we started our own businesses separate. So I became a coach and he became started his own law firm. And then we decided that it made sense for us to like join forces. And that's how we started doing this.
So what's it been like so far, navigating your business partnership and your romantic partnership and all the communication and everything that's got to go on there?
As you can imagine, it's got its challenges, but it's also has its benefits. It's true that I've heard a lot of couples say that like working together brings out the best and the worst in who one another are. The powerful thing about Caleb and I is that we have almost completely opposite skill sets. I'm a little bit more free-spirited and creative and all over the place and just really driven by, being social and getting out there. And Caleb is very organized and he's very methodical and he's able to bring structure to my chaos, if you can say that. So that's been really a really cool element.
There's definitely struggles with it too. Like, I think entering into any business relationship comes with its struggles, just kind of working together and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And then when you throw in the fact that you're in a romantic relationship, it's like, things can get really entangled and it can have its difficulties, but it's definitely worth it. And I think that for us, it's actually helped strengthen our communication skills because we've had to like add this whole new set of communication abilities to our repertoire. And so it's been a really great experience. It's not easy, but it's worth it.
And speaking of struggles, I understand that you had a really challenging time together that actually was the inspiration for launching this business. Would you mind sharing more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So about 2 years ago, Caleb started not feeling well. He just like he got a fever
It
and
was, I mean, at first it seemed like, like I had the flu or something like that. And after about a week or so, I ended up going to the doctor because it wasn't going away.
he was having like
Um,
chest pains and there was like he couldn't breathe very well. I don't know, it just got really intense really fast. So went to the doctor.
Yeah, well, I went to the doctor. We ended up going to lots and lots of doctors, and they all told us different things. Oh, you'll get better in a couple days. Just go home and take some Tylenol, this and that. And I ended up being sick for, in total, about 5 months. But I was sick for a lot of months, and the doctors didn't really know what was wrong, and they thought that it might be cancer. Combined with being sick is, of course, navigating the medical system. And so even though they thought it was cancer, it was going to take at least 2 months to get in and be seen by an endocrinologist. So it was kind of like battling what was going on and waiting to see what was going to happen.
And then there was this whole other element where when I would walk to his hospital room, then they would just assume it was AIDS, which was a very interesting, just an interesting feeling and dynamic to see happen because it was like, oh, I can't believe in San Francisco of all places that this is still going to be the thought process around sickness. And so, yeah, it was really weird. At one point, somebody actually told us that we should be considering like end of life preparations. And at 32 and 33 years old, having found like the love of our lives and being together for a year, it was like
Crazy.
yeah, like how is this even happening?
Yeah, scary and heartbreaking, I imagine.
Yeah, and during that like and mind you, this is like right after we started our own businesses. So like he had just started his law firm. I had just started my practice and I was taking clients out of the apartment. And all of a sudden we couldn't work. We couldn't see clients. He obviously was bedridden and we burned through our savings. We burned through credit cards. We sold our stocks and like cashed out some of our investments. And when he got better, it was like we had a kind of a come to Jesus moment where it was like, we need to be smart about our time, our energy, and our money. And we don't want to go back to working 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week. We want to have a lot of free time to enjoy one another. We want to find a way to like help more people with the work we do. And that's what really leveraged us into this.
So your turning point in a way was Caleb getting better and then saying, okay, now we can reevaluate and look at what the future is going to look like now, which is us together. And then it's like it gave you a perspective of, appreciation and also kind of lit a fire under you a little bit, it sounds like.
It did. And like, well, it was weird because we needed to make money like fast, where it was like, we really need to make money and we don't have time to fool around. But then we also had that thought of like life is short. So we also don't want to work ourselves to death after just coming out of like a scary situation.
Yeah.
And so we decided to work smarter and to do things differently.
And as you've been doing this work now, what unique challenges do you find that LGBTQ entrepreneurs are facing when they're starting up or growing their businesses?
I think one of the biggest struggles is how to be themselves. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs probably face that, but it's particularly glaring in the LGBT community because you can find yourself in a situation where somebody maybe doesn't want to be your client because they find out that you're gay or transgender or something like that. And so this fear of like, can I come out and be a business owner? And if I do, how is that going to impact my business? And so one of the things that we try to focus on is like, you can be yourself and still get clients. And in fact, if you're being yourself, you're going to get the clients that you want to work with. And if you're too busy focusing on being who you think people want you to be, you're going to end up getting clients who you probably don't really want to work with to begin with.
The truth is that like for a lot of people in the LGBTQ community who become entrepreneurs, they don't necessarily become entrepreneurs because that's what they want to do. It's because they have to. There are places in this country where you can still get fired for who you love and how you look. It shouldn't be that way, but that's how it is. And so for a lot of people, starting a business is the only way that they can pay their bills. And when we decided to go into this particular area, we just really had an image in mind of building a community, raising people up in the LGBT community, and doing everything we can so that people can find the success that we're now finding, which has changed everything.
Well, I find this really inspiring because, in a way, you're helping people who didn't necessarily expect to or initially want to be entrepreneurs find fulfillment and community in that role. And then people who do want to be entrepreneurs, you're helping them find fulfillment on another level too, because you're saying you can be the type of entrepreneur that is your true and whole self. It's very inspiring.
Thank you. I mean, we learn from others, right? There's one of my favorite sayings is from Tony Robbins, and he says, like, success leaves clues, don't reinvent the wheel. That was really a driving force for us to say, like, what are other people doing that is really working for them? And we looked at a lot of other coaches and people who are building communities. And while the LGBTQ community has a lot of different strengths, we also are very segmented. And so Caleb and I, we thought, like, what can we do to really bring together this group of people to strengthen the support network? If I'm a business owner and I can help support another business owner in my community, I would like to have access to them so that I can, kind of network and bring the whole group up.
Well, and you're both such a great example of exactly what you're teaching, which is that by being yourselves and by saying, this is who I am, this is what I care about, and these are the people I want to support, you've built a successful business off of that. So I think it's really cool that, exactly what you're teaching, you have manifested yourselves. And I think it really has a sense of power. Do you feel that when you're working with people, to have that ability to stand and say, I know this can work for you because we've done it?
Definitely. I mean, I think that that's one of the gifts of finding success is being able to share what you found and what you've learned. And at the same time, being totally honest with people about what you're not able to do for them, which I think a lot of business professionals lack. We have this mentality of, I can do everything, and especially as a millennial, like, we have access to all information. Like, the smartest person in the room is now the person with the newest and fastest device, right? Like, that's how we define the smartest person in the room, because if asked a question, whoever can get that answer the fastest is the one who wins. And I think that that's also to our detriment, because we tend to say, I can do anything and I can fix any problem. That's not really being a full service to the people who you can actually help. And instead, we have our strengths, which is helping people get clients and make money, right? But if somebody came to us for something that somebody else would be much better at, it's better for us to say, like, how about you work with this person and connect them with somebody who's better at that? Like, I have an analogy, like, I have a motorcycle that I was able to buy after starting my business, which I'm so happy about, because it's always been a dream. It was like a dream of mine. Like, I knew I was successful when I bought a motorcycle.
Yay.
And it's like, I don't fix the oil, even though I can watch a YouTube video on how to do it, because there are people who that's their specialty. They change the oil on motorcycles and they're going to do it really well. I'm going to support them and help them stay in business. And when we were starting our business, we have a lot of strengths, but we still hired a business coach because there are things that we lacked that we needed help with.
Yeah, it's like you're really pointing to the importance of letting yourself be supported, particularly as an entrepreneur or solopreneur. It can feel like the weight of everything is on you, and then you add things that don't necessarily need to be your way because, like you said, you feel like, I've got to do it all. I can do it all. Why don't I just do it? And I think it's highlighting that value around letting yourself be supported.
Yeah, it's vital to just, the biggest growth I've had in my life was being able to look at Caleb and say, like, my strength is not organization. My strength is not finances. These are areas that I lack. And then he was able to say, okay, now that I know that, and now that you've been able to admit that, we can grow on that instead of me pretending like I know what I'm doing and having things crash and burn around me.
Yeah, well, and having him make that realization has been really important. And that goes back to one of your earlier questions about working together, which was like, there was a time where I think we would both try to pretend that we could do everything. And now just kind of like letting go of the things we can't do. Like if we need organization, like we have a lot to do this week. And I told Matthew yesterday, I said, we're going to sit down in the morning and you're going to do everything I tell you to do. And he just said, okay.
And we got so much done.
And in the past, it would have been this like, well, what if I don't want to do that? What if I have other stuff to do? And it's like, well, that's great. You can do it when we're not on a deadline. And just being able to have that dynamic. And then there's other times, when he's got 100 ideas and he wants to tell them all to me. And in the past, I would have been like, all right, it's time to calm down, Mr. Idea Man. But now I can just say, all right, tell me all your ideas. And then I sit and I listen to all of it. And then when the time is right, I say, all right, well, here are the ones that are feasible. And here are the ones that don't really make sense at the moment.
Do you know we're over here cracking up because we've been business partners now for 3 years. And we kind of have a similar dynamic. Like I tend to be like big picture, visionary, like that. I mean, and I can get the stuff done, but that's not my focus. My focus is very future oriented, and Blake's focus is very like, here's what we need to do right now oriented. So sometimes I'm just like, okay, let's just make a list together. And then I know that I'm meeting all of my needs and meeting all of his needs. And I'm like, I just have the list in front of me. That's so funny.
Oh, it's so true. I mean, our calendar has been the saving grace because I think we would both stress out about the things we each had to do on our different projects. And we just said, okay, if we can put it on the calendar, then we can release that stress and that worry because we know there's a time when we're going to work on it. Is there anything like that for you all in your business where you have a system or something in place that's really helped structure your work in a way that relieves some of your stress?
I'm going to go with the calendar as well. So I didn't even know calendars existed before I met Caleb. I never used a calendar. I didn't know phones had calendars in them. It was just like, why would I put something in a calendar?
And I just got home from work so late that he was inevitably already at my apartment. Otherwise, I would have realized he didn't know how to calendar anything.
And the way I was running my business, it was totally like a side hustle. I just, I worked whenever I wanted and I took clients here and there and I just made things work. And if I had to cancel a plan because I double booked, that happened a lot. But now, like, I think Caleb would say he's proud of my how far I've come with using the calendar. I'm pretty on top of it now.
Yeah, the calendar is huge. And just, especially, even if you're on your own, the calendar is huge. But with us trying to juggle 2 schedules and, working out of a space where if one of us is working, the other person either needs to be quiet or needs to be somewhere else, having that calendar to keep on top of it and know what I'm doing and know what he's doing and knowing what we need to be getting done all at the same time is super, super important.
I'll also put a plug out there for like social media blockers. There's one that I've used where it only gives you however much time you allow it to give you on Facebook. And so I said like 30 minutes a day. And then after 20 minutes, it's like, are you paying attention to what you need to be paying attention to? And then after 30 minutes, it just like will not let you get on for the rest of the day, no matter what you do. Unless you want to download like another internet browser, which takes more time than it's worth. When I did that, I got so much more work done and I was more focused.
The other thing I would say is just always knowing your outcome. I think that sometimes, I think that to-do lists can be really valuable for some things, but I think sometimes we could just get so bogged down in our to-do list that we can get overwhelmed. But like knowing what your outcome is and then maybe having a few options of how you can get to that outcome and picking from that can be a really valuable tool to just not only to keep yourself organized, but to keep yourself motivated. Because sometimes when we just focus on the tasks, it gets so overwhelming that all I want to do is take a nap, which we're really good at.
Napping is a critical entrepreneurial skill. It's true. I've actually started doing outcome-based planning instead of to-do list planning. And everything you're describing, I will co-sign 100%. Like, I'm much more motivated, I'm much less stressed, and I'm much more focused. Absolutely.
And it helps you point out like what you can outsource to somebody else who's better at it, right? It's like, I don't need to do X, Y, and Z because the Y is not that important to me. Somebody else can do this.
Yeah. And when I do outcome-based planning, I think of my outcome and then I make a list of all the possible options. And it's like, it's like a menu. If I go to a restaurant, I don't order everything off the menu to get full. I just pick the things that are going to work best and taste best. And so I have that menu of options of what I can do instead of, I have to do this, this, and this. And maybe I don't want to do any of those things. So instead I procrastinate all day long. So yeah, that's a really valuable tool.
That's a really great metaphor. I appreciate that. You've given some really great advice and perspectives around running your business, and it would be great for other entrepreneurs. But we'd love to hear, essentially, like at the heart of this story is that, a few years ago, like you really looked at what it is that you're wanting out of life and took that step and that leap toward fulfillment, and then overcame challenges as you moved forward on that path toward fulfillment in the life that you're really wanting to live. So what advice would you like to give to other millennials who are on that path toward fulfillment or wanting to take that leap and get on the path toward fulfillment?
Find out what you really want. And then, touching on something Matt mentioned earlier is success leaves clues. So once you know what you want, find somebody who can teach it to you. We could have spent years and years trying to figure out how to make our businesses successful, but life is short. So if you can find someone who can teach you how to do it in a fraction of that amount of time, then you should. Not only has it saved us tons of time to have a mentor, but it's made life so much more enjoyable to just be able to look at how somebody else did it and to go to somebody else and say, here's where I'm struggling. What am I doing wrong? And get guidance and just be able to like step into your greatness instead of just living in the struggle of knowing that we have this huge dream and this huge mission and feeling like it's so far away.
And what I'll say is, if there's one piece of advice for millennials, it's like, don't get stuck in the if-then trap. Like the if-then trap that we saw the Generation Xers get caught into, where they're like, if I get the job, or if I get the partner, or if I get the apartment, or, if I move to this city, then I'm going to be fulfilled and successful. And everybody that I work with or any of my friends know that I often say, like, look at your life right now, find ways that it's already successful, find ways that it's already fulfilling, and then grow on that. Really feed those areas of your life until they dominate and expand on what you already have. Like, find gratitude for that, because if we're grateful for those things, then typically the universe can give us more.
That's such an important reminder, because I think so many people, myself occasionally included, do get caught in the conditional happiness trap. If only I have X amount of money, I'll be happy or secure. If only I have this skill or am selected by this organization or this person or whatever. And you're right, we are constantly giving away our power when we say that. So that's a great reminder. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And in closing, well, not totally in closing.
Next to closing.
Next to closing. Would you share some of your thoughts on being members of the millennial generation and some of the strengths and some of the challenges that you see millennials facing in today's world?
Yeah, I think as millennials, we have some of the biggest strengths and maybe the biggest advantages. I think that for a lot of people, their biggest struggle is adapting to change, and not being able to adapt to change can be a real downfall for anyone in their personal life, in their business, or anything else. And I think that as millennials, we really have the edge in that area. We've grown up, some of us got the internet maybe around the time we were in high school. And then for others, like, I think some millennials can't even remember a time where there wasn't any internet. And part of having the internet and all of this technology is constantly adapting to change. The idea that we're out there standing in line for the next iPhone or the newest Android that's coming out, that our phones will update while we're asleep, and we wake up and our phone has a new interface, and we just kind of pick it up and figure it out. And like, adapting to change is this constant part of our lives that we've kind of grown to just love. Like, oh, look at the new Google, and look at the new smartphone and all these new things. And that ability to not just adapt to change, but love the change as it's coming, I think is probably the biggest advantage that we as millennials have. And that's really going to continue to serve us if we apply that to all areas of our life.
And then I think too that strength, that like thing that really gives us an advantage, is also probably one of our biggest weaknesses. Like I said earlier, like the smartest person in the room has the fastest device, and we no longer really have to absorb and know things anymore. Like, the generation before us studied and went to school and really absorbed a lot of information, and we are kind of dependent on an outside source for our knowledge now. We don't rely too much on memorization of facts or phone numbers or any of these things. And so while we're getting smarter as a generation because of our ability to access knowledge, what we actually know with no devices in the room is, I think, smaller.
That's such an interesting comparison of adaptability and dependence, like all wrapped up together, right? It's like we're really able to change, but we're also really dependent on external sources of knowledge. And I think about that all the time when I travel, because my phone has everything. It's got my plane ticket, it's got my hotel, it's got the Uber to the hotel, it's got the information, when I do motivational speaking in schools, like it's got all the school information on there and the times, and then I film the gig on my phone. Like literally my entire day is made possible just from this device in my pocket. But yeah, if for some reason it were to die or something, like I would have to get very innovative and adaptable very quickly. So that's a great reminder of the strength and the weakness of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny you talk about not memorizing numbers or not. Like, I don't even know if I know Blake's number. Like, it's so sad. But, I think about back in the day, because we're old enough to remember what it's like to not have cell phones and to not if you were hanging out with your friends and you were like, that one actress from that one movie, and like you just would have to be patient and like hope that you remembered at some point, like throughout the night. Like you couldn't. And now, like I love having all that information at the tip of my fingers, because even if I'm watching a TV show and they make some reference, I'm like, who is that or what is that? And I just can Google it, and then I know all the things. Of course, it probably doesn't stick, to your point. So.
Well, even now we can just talk out loud in our living room and be like, Alexa, tell us the actress from this movie. You know what I mean? Like you can just like, and like, awesome. It's like, okay, here you go. Like,
I think it's, it makes me wonder, like I'm hearing a trade-off, like we're developing these skills and adaptability and, being able to think really quickly and move really quickly. But, on the flip side, it's like when I was studying for my GRE a few years ago, I realized I wasn't that great at spelling anymore because of autocorrect. So I had, I turned that stuff off and like forced myself to learn it, because you can't just, it's not going to autocorrect it in your GRE essay, and I realized like how much I kind of missed back in the day, my teacher being like, how do you spell this? And then she'd go, look it up in the dictionary. And I'd be like, how can I look it up if I don't know? But, made your brain think, at a different level.
Yeah.
So one follow-up on that, how do you feel that the technological advances and all this has affected the experience of some LGBTQ millennials who have grown up in certainly greater media visibility, but also a lot more connectivity because of the internet and apps and everything?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think I think it's a great tool that's been, we hear a lot of the older generation LGBTQ community members just talking about how like in their day, if they wanted to find somebody, there was like systems for that, where they had to wear like a flag in their pocket or keychain on a certain side, or, there was like really underground ways of connecting with one another. And now there's millions of ways to connect with. I mean, Caleb and I met on an app. I hope your mom doesn't listen to this, but but we met on like a hookup app where we were able to just like be like, oh, this really cute person is within like,
a mile
of my apartment. Right. I'm gonna go hang out with them, and like that's not possible for the people before us. I don't even know what they did. Like
they walked out on the street and were like, this really cute person is within 2 footsteps.
how scary that is to like get rejected face to face.
Yeah.
Whereas now you can just block people. So and then I also do a lot of volunteer work for LGBT youth and crisis lines, and having internet resources for these people who live kind of in the middle of nowhere with no like LGBT center or no other people that they know of who are out in their community, they can connect with other people through technology. And so, I know that our generation gets a lot of slack for being like one of the most connected, disconnected generations there is, because we're constantly looking at our phones and constantly on computers, but it helps. It's helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I would say too, for the transgender community, it's like, that's a community that just requires a lot of resources to doctors and access to what the laws are in any particular state. And the internet in the last, 13 years has come so far to where you could probably go through just a couple of websites and find all of the information that you need to find out what doctors you can go to, what the medical requirements are, and stuff like that. And that information didn't used to be out there. That used to be really hard to come by, and you would have to, just know somebody who could point you in the right direction, kind of like, I don't know, like an underground collection of people who can like point you where you need to go. But now it's just, it's out there and you can find it, and the accessibility to be able to do that is there, and the accessibility to be able to access other people who are like you. I run a podcast called Beyond Gender, where we interview transgender people and let them get their stories out there. And I've heard from so many of my listeners about how they've been able to listen and like hear their story and feel like somebody understands them. And that's something that just wasn't possible, 10 or 20 years ago.
Wow.
Well, this has been such an awesome conversation, really fun and inspiring. You guys are great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, before we totally wrap up, would you share with the audience where they can find out more about you and your work?
Definitely. So we are on all kinds of social media right now. We have our website,
the World Wide Web. We're at www.lgbtqentrepreneur.com. We are also on Facebook, so facebook.com/LGBTQ entrepreneur. And those are the best ways to connect with us.
Yeah, for now.
Awesome. Well, Matthew and Caleb, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your wisdom with us today. And good luck on your adventure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on here. This was a great time.
For show notes and previous episodes, or to learn more about our coaching and event offerings, visit motivationalmillennial.com. That's millennial, MILLENNIAL. Keep in touch with us at facebook.com/motivationalmillennial.
We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email with your thoughts, comments, and suggestions at podcast@motivationalmillennial.com. And tell us who you might like to hear from, or if you think you or anyone you know would be good for the show.
Our theme music was composed and performed by our very own Blake Brandis.
The Motivational Millennial Podcast is edited by Brittany Felix. Have a great week, Motivational Millennials!